Okay, hello and welcome to this video on how to answer questions 3B and questions 3C for the Germany paper for Edexcel. I've decided to combine them both. They're both 4-mark questions, both relatively straightforward, and it's quite easy for you to pick up all the marks if you follow the structures. If you don't follow the structures, you will struggle to pick up the marks on this one. This is why it's really important that we know the structures for the Weimar and Germany and Nazi Germany paper. So for question 3B, you have to give one Peel paragraph giving quotes from both interpretations and explaining how the interpretations are different. Again, that will make a lot more sense when we actually look at the interpretations and I do the model answer for you. And then for question 3C, we do a one Peel paragraph using the same sentence starter no matter what. That will be revealed to you in a second. And then we link the interpretations to the sources. Now, you're probably thinking, what sources? It's the same sources that we saw in the video. So question 3A. Okay, so these sources, I've just kept a screenshot of our analysis of those. They're going to be important for question 3C. Okay, so it's always worth having those to hand. So with that being said, then this is the question for question 3B. Notice how the theme of the question is exactly the same as the theme for 3A. So question 3A, B, C, and D will always have the same theme. So hopefully in the exam you get a theme that you like, because on the Weimar paper, about 60 to 70% of your marks are going to be based upon just one single theme, essentially. Which is why the paper can sometimes be difficult or sometimes be really nice. Okay, so again, we're considering the extent of support, and we're now going to have a little read through these interpretations. Okay, now again, I've not looked at these beforehand in advance. I'm literally doing it live, just so that you can see like what it is like for someone who is a teacher who's approaching these questions fresh. Okay, so these are the interpretations. What I'm going to do first of all is I'm just going to encourage you to pause the video and have a little read through. I'm going to have a little read through now, and then I'll explain what I'm doing. So you'll see as I'm reading through, I'm going to highlight or underline the key parts of the interpretation. And then next to it, I'm going to just write in a couple of words what the interpretation is saying. Okay. Remember, when you're picking out quotes, you always want to do top, middle, or bottom. Okay, so look at the top part of the interpretation, look at the middle, or look at the bottom. If you're struggling to understand, okay, that will make life 100 times easier, because the exam board will usually put some of the most important quotes either top, middle, or bottom. Okay. So interpretation 1 then. So during the Third Reich, many Germans did not conform with the Nazi regime. This was shown by the fact that some people left the Nazi party and others refused to give the Heil Hitler greeting and salute. Other people protested against Nazi control of schools and churches. Some Germans told jokes about the Führer, while others listened to foreign radio stations or danced to American swing music. Widespread complaining amongst the German people showed that they did not always fully support the Nazi regime. Look at, this is exactly proof of what I've been talking about, okay? So the most important quote is this one. This one actually doesn't have an important quote in the middle, but that last quote is also really important. Okay, so next to this in the exam, I would just write something like widespread. No, in fact, you got to use words that aren't in the question, aren't in the interpretation. So a lot of resentment and a lack of support. Okay. So try and be a bit more sophisticated, just saying they didn't have support. You want to say a lot of resentment, a lot of hostility, and a lack of support towards the Nazis. Okay, so automatically, as soon as you've worked out one interpretation, you know the other interpretation has to take the opposite view. Okay, because the question is asked you what's the difference. All right, so always take the opposite view. Okay. If in doubt as well, a good little tip, and I'll write this at the top, is using the idea of success or not successful. Okay. So in this case, we would say, and this works for nearly all the questions, we would say that the Nazis were unsuccessful in gaining the support of the people, according to interpretation 1. Whereas interpretation 2 is suggesting that they were successful. Okay. Before we even read it, we don't even need to read it. Right. We know what it's going to be saying. We obviously need to read it to get our quotes. Okay, so interpretation two then. So from 1933 onwards, the German people clearly conformed with the Nazi regime and became devoted to Hitler. Again, a great quote. Hundreds of thousands of Germans from different classes joined the Nazi party. In fact, so many people tried to join in 1933 that the party struggled to cope with the numbers. In the years 1933 to 39, the Nazi party gained 4 million new members. A flood of people also joined other Nazi organizations. The increase in support for the Nazis suggests that the majority of the German people found it easy to support the Nazi dictatorship. Again, look at the end. Perfect quote. Okay, so I'm going to write just something here, the fact that they were successful in gaining support. Using the concept of successful, not successful is really helpful. So if you had a question about like treatment of women, one of the interpretations would be suggesting that the Nazis were successful in controlling women. The other one would suggest that they were unsuccessful in controlling women. Okay, if you had one on control of society, one would be that they were successful in controlling society. The other would be that they were unsuccessful. So successful, not successful is how you want to approach it if you are finding it. I mean, not even if you find it difficult, it's just a great way to approach it. Okay, so let me just erase everything on the screen. Okay, so I'm going to do the following things. So let me just, so all you need to do for this one is this. So one reason why interpretations 1 and 2 are different is because they suggest, or is because they give different views about how successful the Nazis were in gaining the support of the people. Interpretation 1 suggests that the Nazis were not successful and that the people resented them and demonstrated hostility towards them. Then I put colon and then I give my quote. So my quote from interpretation 1, we went for the top one. So we might say, during the Third Reich, many Germans did not conform to the Nazi regime. Okay, and then you want to use a connective. You say, in contrast, interpretation 2 suggests that the Nazis were successful in gaining support. And we want to maybe be a bit more developed, so in gaining support, and that people across society like them. It says, colon and quote again, and then we'll do the increase in support suggests that the majority of the German people found it easy to support the Nazi dictatorship. Majority of the German people found it easy to support Nazi dictatorship. Okay, and then when you've done that, that's pretty much all the marks. Just to be on the safe side, you then say this is a clear difference as the two interpretations the two interpretations suggest that attribute different levels of success to the Nazis in gaining support. Okay. So just a little sentence at the end, just consolidating what you said. You don't have to, if you're in a rush in the exam, you still probably get 4. Okay. So in terms of this, then I've got my point sentence at the start. Then got my evidence from interpretation 1. You must use a quote. If you don't use a quote, you are shooting yourself in the foot, and you will not get as many marks. And then like that. Okay. So the same applies for interpretation 2. Also use a quote for that, and then give a small explanation at the end. Okay, so that's 3B. 3C then says, suggest one reason why interpretations 1 and 2 give different views about the extent of support for the Nazi regime in the years 1933 to 39. You may use sources B and C to help explain your answer. It's literally telling you how to get all the marks, okay? This question, if you know this, you will get all the points, okay? It's like probably the easiest question on all of your papers, if you know the structure. So the fact that it's saying you can use sources B and C to help explain your answer, this is what you write. Now, this first sentence, you write no matter what, okay? No matter what the question is, you write the exact same sentence. So you say, one reason why interpretations 1 and 2 are different is because they give weight to different historical sources. No matter what, learn that off by heart, please, because that will get you at least 1 mark. Okay. You then will say interpretation 1, which is critical of the amount of support, or which is critical of the Nazi ability to gain support. In fact, no, that's right. The author of interpretation 1, who is critical of Nazi ability to gain support, would have used sources, like. Then you want to link it to the sources that we've seen beforehand. So source B is our source, which suggests that the Nazis didn't have popular support. So the author of interpretation 1 is who is critical of the Nazi ability to gain support. Probably used sources like source B, which suggests that the Nazis did not have the support of the workers. Okay. In contrast, the author of interpretation 2, who argues that the Nazis did gain support, significant support, likely used sources like source C, which suggests that Hitler was a popular and well-liked figure. Okay, I'm about 3 marks out of 4 here, maybe 4 if the examiner is generous. I would then just have 1 sentence saying, therefore, the 2 sources are different because they have relied upon very different sources to reach different historical judgments. You could also memorize that last line, because that last line will also work no matter what. Okay, so I would be memorizing the first sentence and the last sentence for this question, just to make sure that your marks are easy. Okay, so your point sentence, evidence about interpretation 1 and linking it to source B in green, and then evidence about interpretation 2, then linking it to source C, and then a explanation in purple. Okay, that's how you get 4 out of 4 on 3B and 3C. Again, nice questions, only if you know the structures. All right, I'll see you in the next video for the final question on the Weimar, which is the big 16 marker, and 4 additional marks. I will stop sharing.